Well, hello everyone. Jenn Payeur here. I am absolutely thrilled to be with Dr. Jenny Tarfankian.
Tufenkian.
Tufenkian. Thank you. I knew I was going to mess it up, even though I wrote it down. Um, and you said you could go by Dr. Jenny, which makes it easier. Just absolutely thrilled to have you here in the Wellness Sherpa podcast.
Thank you
And
so much for having me. I'm very excited for our talk today.
well, I'm excited to find you. How have we been in the same group and not been able to find each other? So I guess everything in divine timing, right?
Exactly.
Your beautiful flowers there.
Thank you.
So Dr. Jenny specializes in many things. She's a naturopathic doctor. I love the name of your practice, in joyful health. It's beautiful and it totally resonates with my values. And why don't you share a little bit more about what you've recently been focusing on in the last 4 years and a little bit about your journey and how you ended up here?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me. So, as many of us, and I know with your story as well, it's sort of like my work right now, what I've been focusing on really chose me. I've been working with people who have complex chronic disease for decades. I've been in practice for over 20 years and I was clinical faculty at the school, and the front desk always knew they could send their most challenging patients to me. And the reason why is because I had my own really health crisis when I was a second year medical student. Figured I was on top of the world, had passed my clinical boards with flying colors, and decided it was time to have a second child because my first child was sleeping through the night, and ended up that the universe had different plans. I ended up having a series of miscarriages, and one of those was at 17 weeks where I hemorrhaged, passed out, and had to be rushed to the hospital. And it became one of those dark night of the soul situations. I had lost five other people really close to me that year. I had a young child. I was in medical school. There was no time. My friends would go meditate, and I'm like, I don't have time for that. Like, I just kind of like, all my social life was waiting in line to go to the bathroom. That was my social life. Like, I had a child. I was in medical school. That's all I did.
Enough
And,
said.
and so, right. And I was one of those people where I was used to being everyone else's rock, and I had been all through childhood and adolescence. And there was something about my body getting slammed by the universe to a place where I was just stuck in bed. And I couldn't make it to the bathroom without help. I was in bed for months. I had IVs in my arm. People later thought I was going to die, told me they thought I was going to die. I was very sick. It was very scary. I had severe anxiety, suicidal ideation. I mean, it was a very dark, dark place that I lived in for a while. And that journey through that darkness of I really had no choice. I couldn't like get up and ignore it. It was just right there with me. Sort of like when you were talking about your journey in terms of that breakthrough
Call that the
moment.
2x4, Dr. Jenny, is you get the 2x4 where
Right.
you've been getting messages and you ignore, and then you just can't ignore anymore.
Yeah. Body slammed by the universe. Exactly. Two by four. And I know that you agree with me that we have this, I mean, I see we have this physical body, this mental, emotionless, energetic body. And it was like all of those systems were down at the same time. And there was just nothing I could do but surrender. And in that surrender, I was surrounded by a lot of people who came to me and helped me do healing work. And one of them helped me do subconscious work. And it was through doing subconscious work that I began to understand that I was holding trauma in my body that wasn't even mine. It was generational. It was other soul journeys, all that. I was able to work through that and was able to move out of that darkness and do that deep soul work, what my soul had been craving for me to do. I did that work and it made me a better doctor because I really feel like I was on the verge of death, and I was able to really understand the power of life in a whole other way and tap into this other part of my being that allowed me to be present for those patients who were really, really sick. And I noticed it as soon as I went back to school a year later. I was able to sit with the really sick patients who might be dying of cancer, who have really severe chronic disease or had had traumatic childhoods, and was able to be with them in a way because I had gone through that journey myself. The work in that subconscious work got me from what I call the bed to the couch. I was no longer suicidally depressed. I didn't have anxiety. I was feeling okay, but I was still really tired. And this is when I got somebody said, "Do you have chronic fatigue syndrome?" And this is the 90s. And I was like, "Get that yucky label away from me. I do not have the yuppie flu. Get it off me." But I had to think about it. It's like, oh, that is kind of what I got. And I couldn't do very much in a day. I was tired all the time. And it was you know, I was mostly on the couch. And so I ended up beginning to treat that. And after doing everything I could as a young student doctor, I did break through and I got 150% better, like all the way better, like working 17-hour days, which I know aren't healthy, but they can be fun. And with my child and open clinics and was teaching, ended up having another kid and doing all that kind of stuff. And really thought I would never get sick again and really understood that people can heal from really complex disease, that the medical system says you can't get over this. I disagree. You can. I've seen it. And I was able to help people get well. And then I ended up having a relapse. And this is when something I didn't expect to have happen, but I learned a very valuable lesson here. Yeah, please.
Interrupt you for a second. How far apart after you went through that and you were
Yeah.
back shining your light and then you
Yeah.
have a relapse? What's
Yes, so I have to do the math here. So I graduated in 2000. I was still sick. I was doing my residency, and it was halfway through my residency that I popped out. So there've been like 2001, just the beginning of 2001, and then I crashed again in 2004, sort of end of 2013, 14.
okay? So about 12 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
12 years of what I called high big wave surfing to my friends. Like
Okay.
we're surfing on big waves, we're doing all this stuff. Hope we don't fall. And and it was so interesting when I did have that relapse because I learned a couple of really valuable things. One, relapse is always possible and not in a scary way. Like those of you listening, I don't want you to be scared by that. This is a piece of empowerment. I tell my patients this on day one because the truth is that once you uncover what are your root causes and what was your setup, what set you up to get this condition, or what set you up for the relapse, once you know what those are, you know when you're at risk for relapse and you can start to retreat yourself if you need to. So the fact that I relapsed so quickly and it got so scary really fast was terrifying for me at the time, but now I realize that the pearl of truth in that can be valuable for everyone to listen to because now I know what my triggers are and so I can have a toolkit ready for me in case I'm at risk of relapse in the future. I ended up relapsing. I got really sick again, but this time I couldn't go back to bed or else I'd go bankrupt because I had a clinic. My family was dependent on me financially. I needed to keep working. I had severe pain from frozen shoulder. I'd injured my knee. I had perimenopause. I wasn't sleeping. All these things were tumbling me down to this really high inflammatory state, and it re-triggered a whole bunch of stuff in my body. And since I couldn't sleep, I just got up and researched. And I ended up researching what is going on with this stuff. This is about 2016, 2015. And I ended up really uncovering that there are these different root causes to chronic fatigue syndrome. Usually when I'm really sick or tired or my kids need something, my patients go away, my schedule empties, like the universe saying, take care of yourself, Dr. Jenny.
Yes.
Right? This, and I expected that to happen because I felt awful. But the opposite happened. My clinic, people came in droves. I had this crazy long waiting list. I was booked out for months, all people with chronic fatigue that just found me. And through listening to people's stories and what I was researching at night and what I was experimenting and guinea pigging on myself, I was able to map out these patterns. What kind of tired am I listening for that might mean they have one root cause versus another root cause? What tests are actually out there that works? What is underneath this condition? Back then, they thought it was just one thing. I was beginning to realize it's multifactorial. Now that's understood that it's a multifactorial condition.
Well, I
So,
want to jump just for a second because
yeah,
I think
please.
it's really important that we hear these things. Two things that you mentioned that I think are really important to highlight. One is that our bodies are always giving us messages.
Yes.
And a big part of the healing is, are we listening to those messages? So if anybody's asking why I have a black eye,
Uh-huh.
I just launched a documentary, wrote a book, and I was going, and I was getting these messages. Jennifer, you need to slow down. You need to slow down, Jenn, slow down. And then finally, last Monday, a week and a half ago, I tripped over my phone cord in the middle of the night, fell and went face first into a dresser and knocked myself out.
Oh my
So
gosh, I'm so
I'm
sorry.
bringing this up because those messages will
Yeah.
get louder and louder. And you and I have both experienced it in different
Yeah.
ways. And
Yeah.
relapses can look different. It doesn't have to exactly be the same thing that you had, but it's
Exactly.
very common if we don't
Right.
listen, number one. And number two, the healing journey is not a linear journey that goes this way, right? It's like it's a
Yes.
cycle and we go through it and we keep
Yes,
peeling off layers of these root causes.
absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
I just wanted to get those in because you mentioned those, and I think it's important for the audience to understand that.
And I really appreciate that because the truth is that when I had that first experience and I got better, it was adrenal stuff and it was detoxing from my heavy metals, getting the 20 amalgam mercury fillings I had in my mouth out, detoxing from that and a few other things. But those are like the really big things that I did at that time. And people would come to me who were had chronic fatigue, and sometimes those would help those people. Then other people I wasn't able to get them through the door because there was more to it. And the second time I got it, I had to explore all these other things, right? And then I was able to help so many more people because it was like, oh, there are all these other root causes or these other part pieces of the setup. The picture became more complete for me as a practitioner. And in terms of that screaming versus whispering, that's so true. And I'm one of my patients, I remember her saying, now I understand. Now I can hear my body when it's whispering to me and it doesn't have to scream, right?
Yes.
Like that's really good when we could do that.
Yes. Amen.
What's
Yes.
that?
Absolutely.
Oh, right. Oh, thank you. All this. Oh, thank you. Yes.
Thank you for the message. I got it. I'm listening.
Right, right. So I ended up healing again from this condition from the condition, and again 150% better, no limitations, no glass ceiling on my energy, didn't have to energy budget, which is where you're like, ooh, I don't know if I do that, then I may not be have the energy to work on Monday, or if I go out tonight, I won't be able to get that, paper written tomorrow or whatever it is. So that energy budgeting piece gone. And the pandemic hit. And I thought, you know what? There is going to be a second pandemic of chronic fatigue because two of the root causes. One is immense amount of stress that triggers your limbic brain and your, autonomic nervous system into a danger response loop. And the second is our chronic infections. And so here we have the whole world getting impacted by stress and
Yeah.
by this virus. And so I was talking about this during the pandemic that this was going to be a thing. I didn't know it was going to be called long COVID. I didn't know any of that. But so since the pandemic, I've been working with people who are struggling with long COVID and chronic fatigue and myalgic encephalitis, and have really just focused in and having this be my practice. And this is what I do. And like you, it just feels like this has chosen me to be the voice for this. Sometimes I feel like I'm the Lorax on the trees, shouting, going, you guys, there are answers. You mean to understand what these conditions are. We need to understand how to empower our doctors, how to empower our patients, for everyone listening, for you to be empowered to understand how to take care of your own health. Just to close out my little personal story, as I came through the pandemic extremely healthy, ended up getting the virus in the one little window where I thought in my schedule, I actually do have time to get sick. I'm going to get this virus at some point. And of course, I got it then. And unfortunately, I just had a gastrointestinal illness, food poisoning previously, right before, and it was a complete setup along with an immense amount of stress I've been under I got long COVID. And so I then got to answer my questions of, well, how
Personally,
different is this chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalitis to long COVID from the insider's experience? So now I get to speak as an insider as well as an outsider on this journey on this healing journey. And you're right, the journey's never from here to here. We want it to be, it's like this. And sometimes you think you've relapsed and you're actually just in a little meadow, or maybe you have taken a step back, but there's always something to grow from in that space. So yeah, so that's my story of why I'm here now.
when a patient comes to you, how do you determine what it is, if it's long COVID or if it's the chronic fatigue? Are they the same? Are they different? Will you share a little bit more about that?
Sure, yeah, it's a great question. And there isn't a test out there to diagnose chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis, or long COVID, which is part of the reason why the conventional medical community feels really overwhelmed by this condition, because it doesn't fit into their model of training of we have a test to say you have it, we have a treatment we can give to you, we can retest you to see whether this is working or not. They don't have their normal feedback system set up, well for this condition. So it really takes it takes more time than you're going to get in a 7 or 15 minute doctor's appointment to unearth what's going on with your body. If you're struggling with complex chronic fatigue from long COVID or myalgic encephalitis, and I really see them as being the same thing with some slight variations. So when somebody's coming to me, what I'm listening for lots of different things. I'm going through an algorithm in my head of what are the potential root causes that I know that trigger these conditions in people. And I'm also going through what are the 5 health foundations that I know all of us need to have strong in our bodies for a body to be vital and healthy. And often those are the things that we want to focus on first. So say one of the health foundations would be sleep or digestion. If those are dysregulated and off, then it's going to be very hard for the body to naturally get back into its state of balance. And so that might be something that we would focus on as one of the things that we really need to get in alignment. In terms of back to your question about how is it that I actually diagnose them, it's what I'm listening for in terms of what's happened to your energy and when did this change? And explain to me what your energy is like throughout the day. Is it always the same? Give me a number of your energy. Is it 0 through 10? It doesn't really matter what the number is because it's all relative to your own personal experience, right? But it's how much of a change is it for them? How is this limiting your experience in your life? And then there's some really key things that I think are important for us to all understand. There's something called post-exertional malaise, which is where that if you overdo yourself, you do more than you usually do in a day, then you pay for it. And you may pay for it right away, or you
Well,
may
this
pay
goes
for it.
back to the analogy you used of, are you trading something for another, right? You're in that energy deficit
Right.
and you're having to
Exactly.
choose what to exert your energy on.
Yes, exactly. So that's usually people with some level of post-exertional malaise either consciously or unconsciously do the energy budgeting.
Yes.
And they're always trading, like kids birthday party or going out with my friends, right? Like I can't go out with my friends on Friday and throw the birthday party on Saturday. That's not going to work. I have to do one or the other. So the post-exertional malaise is really the body's mitochondria, which are the power plants inside your cells. They are unable to reset their energy cycle, reset that ATP. It's supposed to happen really fast in the body. If you have a big workout, it should reset within 20 minutes. And for people with with chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis, long COVID, it is common, not everyone, but it's common that they have some level of post-exertional malaise where they pay for it. I say not everyone, and that's a little bit controversial because they just added in a couple years ago the way that you officially diagnose myalgic encephalitis is that it does include this post-exertional malaise piece. It's just
Okay.
that I would say clinically, I've seen people who don't really have that bad of post-exertional malaise, and yet they still fit all the other boxes. So I diagnose them with it because the label doesn't really matter. It's like what you do for the treatment to get them back living their life fully that matters.
So sleep, digestion, what else is important to keep a body healthy?
Yeah, so the 5 health foundations are I cheat because I put them together with some other things. So I say rhythm and sleep in terms of what is your diurnal rhythm. Often your sleep is so dictated by what you do first thing in the morning. Are you getting that first morning daylight? Walking out and just opening up your window and sticking your face out there for a few minutes and getting that daylight in without glasses on is so important. So setting that diurnal. So rhythm and sleep is number 1. Digestion and detoxification is number 2. Movement and breath is really important. And then mindset and spirit. And I used to just have those 4 health foundations, but during the pandemic, I brought in the 5th, which is connection. And connection is connection to yourself, to your higher self, connection to your community, connection to, your environment. It's that thing that so many of us didn't have during the pandemic that caused even more dis-ease.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that I have goosebumps as you say that. I think it's so important because as humans, we are meant to connect, right? We're
Right.
meant to connect with ourselves. And I think a big part of what's been happening over the last 20, 30 years is we're inside most of the time,
Yeah.
sitting at a desk under
Yeah.
fluorescent lights,
Yeah.
and it's just bombarding our energy and it's creating this further disconnect.
Yeah.
You mentioned it in the beginning when you were sick, like, I don't have time to meditate. No, I'm just, I've got all these things to do, right? And in 2022, I did 4 retreats with Dr. Joe Dispenza that were week.
Oh, great.
And one of the things he said that finally like totally shifted me
Yeah.
was meditation is where you meet you. And he said,
Oh,
how many of you will die on the sword to not miss an appointment for somebody else? But when you have time for you, you give that time away. Ah, I'm too busy. I've got this going on, right? And he said, so
yeah.
you're missing the opportunity to connect with you.
Mm.
And I personally believe based on and I did have chronic fatigue in 2008. I think it's what eventually led to my cancer diagnosis.
Right. Exactly.
Um,
Right.
because it wasn't treated or acknowledged
Yeah.
back when
Right.
I had it. But that disconnect from ourselves is really the beginning of the dis-ease in our body, because
Mm.
that is that's our foundation,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And to your point about all of your amazing work that you're doing with bringing the plants into the world and talking about the energetic healing of the plants and how connected we are to them and how we've evolved with the plants. Same thing too with just that time in nature. That time in nature is so important to help us re-regulate our bodies. I think the more we spend time on screens, the more we spend time in social media, which I'm there too. Like we all have, we are using these as tools, and yet I think we have to be aware of the power that these things can also have on our energy body, and not just our emotional body, but our energy body as well. And there's sort of an energetic pattern to that, even that social media world. Like that's another current of energy that we go into every time we pick up our phone and look at it, that impacts our energetic field. And so being out in nature can really help clear that for us. So again,
Yeah.
if you kind of feel it, I remember my kids when they would watch too much TV, and like they would sort of almost be like they were stoned, they'd be like, whoa,
Zombie.
like, and they'd start behaving badly. And they're just like, oh, you are TV toxic. It's
Yes.
like, I need to throw you outside. You need to go
Yes.
roll in the grass in the rain, like get that stuff off of you and find yourself. And I think we need that as adults too. And that's part of that connection piece, right? Just like, when do you feel like you are you? And what do you need to do to get there? Like for me, I know I can just go outside and be by a tree, and it helps me,
Yeah.
like come back
Hug
in.
a tree, put your bare feet on the earth yesterday, so
Yeah.
it's been really busy yesterday. I said, you know what, I just need to go do some grass angels, get in the ground, lay on the ground. And I
Oh,
flipped over on my stomach. And, for me, I can actually feel the heartbeat of the earth. And it's like,
beautiful.
wow, that's just a reflection of us. And then I was like, oh, I can feel my own heartbeat. Wow, I can feel this community, this commune happening, this resonance. And it does, we have a tendency, because of all of the doing that we're in right now, to think it's one more thing on the list. And I know I
Right.
had that before. It's like, oh, I don't have time for that. And it's like, it's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Get up, go outside, connect to nature,
Yeah.
take in the sun, receive, right? We're so used to giving and being outward.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to receive this beautiful free medicine that's out there for
Yeah.
us.
Exactly. I totally agree. It's so important to have that just be part of our daily life. Yeah.
And so, how do you talk to your patients about that? Because some people say, "What? What do you mean I should go outside? What do you mean? How is that going to help me?" So, how do you enroll them in that ideation of this is going to help you heal?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
going to help bring you back into a state of resonance and balance.
When I'm talking one-on-one with people, I'm really meeting people with where they're at. And so I talk with them in terms of a framework that I think is going to connect with where they're coming from, to get them to, understand the power of being outside, or what is it that, where is it? What I ask, and this is what I would ask you who's listening, those of you who are listening to this, is what do you know about your life now that makes you feel more connected to yourself, to your higher self, to all of that makes you feel good. I mean, for some people it's prayer. For some people it's taking going out and getting exercise. For some people it's reading, doing some writing or something. It's like we all have our different ways. And so I think it's important to remember that we all know something about ourselves. What is it that you know? And then doing more of that. And then if I feel like there's a place, sometimes it's just remembering that that's what you need to do, and then bringing that in and understanding the value of it. Like you said, like it's not just like, oh, if I have time. Like I remember when before all this happened to me in medical school, my thinking process was, oh, I love doing that stuff. Once I get all 55 things on my list done, then I'll get to
Then,
treat myself to go outside and go for a walk in the woods. And, it's like, and
Versus starting
now,
your day with that,
right,
and then
exactly.
and then you have more to share, right?
Exactly. And I think as the older I get, the more lessons I have, the more that comes back to me of the importance of it's not even just filling my cup first, it's really just allowing myself to be me
Right.
and to really support who I am so that I can live out my purpose and be more present for all of for everyone that I'm here to, help out in this world, right? Or to guide or whatever it is that we're doing here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wonder if you see this in your practice, but back when I was in the crux of my healing crisis,
Yeah.
I one day had this epiphany that said, I wonder if I switch my mindset from what did I get done today? What do I achieve? Right. Because I would always have my to-do list,
Yeah.
love to check, making those check marks, got it done, to how
Yeah.
much joy did I have today?
Oh, I love that.
And I changed, and that's why I was said when you said in joyful health, I love that
Yeah.
because joy is a high vibration.
Right.
And when I started looking at my life through the lens of joy,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm so depressed because even the things that I love to do became another check mark on my list. And that
Yes.
went very rote and very unconscious.
Yeah.
And I started asking clients that I work with in my healing practice, what brings you joy? And I am stunned by how many, especially women, look
Uh-huh.
at me like deer in the headlights. What do you
Yeah.
mean?
I know.
Then it's something with their kids or their husband. And I said, well, what about you?
Yeah.
And then I often will ask them, what did you love to do at 3 or 4 or 5 years old?
Yes. Yes.
Right. And to take them back to their
Mhm.
childhood.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, I used to love to sing or hum. And I'm like, great,
Yeah.
start humming.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of pull that out? And do you see that similar pattern?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And I've asked similar questions, and similarly, I'll go back to childhood. So I have the same thing in terms of those things. And actually, uh, yes, and I think just personally in my own life, I've been aware of that. Well, I think that lack of joy is part of what leads to burnout for a lot of people. And that burnout is a gateway into a chronic fatigue myalgic encephalitis pattern, or would make you way more vulnerable to get long COVID for sure, because you have just become a doer instead of somebody who is there living like a human. You're a human doer instead a human doing instead of a human being in terms of your existence. And I and the joy piece, I think it's sometimes it's just a perspective shift, and you can do the exact same thing. And this is where, personally in my own journey, just even recently, I was on vacation in New Zealand, and because I'm launching this big summit that's a huge project. It's like birthing your first child, it's this huge project. It's like your documentary. It's a lot of work, and it's stuff that you thought you'd be done before you left for vacation, and it's not, or you're waiting for other people to do things. And I ended up working a lot more on that vacation than I expected. And some of those were very long days. My husband was in the same situation with his business. So we had some work days on our vacation. And it was so interesting to see how I can look back at some of the days that I was working 14 hours on vacation, and they are delightful in my memory, like delightful days, because of how I was energetically on that day. Like
Right.
I was in my joy. I was in my bliss. I was grateful. I was on this beautiful front porch with butterflies around me, looking at the ocean as I'm writing a guide to help people sleep. And, I mean, I was blissed out. And then I noticed the times when I was like, got into my cranky, right? Where I was like, not in my joy. I'm like, I can't believe I'm working. I don't want to work today. I don't want to have to do this, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, I did not feel good. I chose, like, it was like a choice that I chose to not have a good day that day because of my attitude. So it's like myself under a microscope. I got better and better at going, oh, nope, that's the cranky, constricted feeling.
Right.
Jenny, do you have another choice right now? Is there something you can do to bring yourself into another place of choice right now? What do you need? Like, do you need to go
Message.
out? Do you need to jump? Do you need to dance? Do you need to sing? Do you need to hug yourself? Do you need to ask your husband for a hug? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to say, I'm going to do this later because I need to just go have fun right now and then I'll come back and do this? Or do you need to just get this done and then go play?
Right.
And, and it's like, gosh, every single day is like that. We have a choice of how do I want to be today? How do I want to be today? And even for those of you who are listening to this who are struggling with really complex health concerns, this is still true for you, and even more so true for you, as hard as that may sound. And that's kind of, I think there's just a real place where we can still choose to be in our joy and our love.
Yes, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
It's a choice. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think
And
one of the most important messages.
yeah, and not to say that there isn't also a time to be in your anger and experience your fear and all of that and your grief. I mean, when I first got long COVID, it was overnight. Like I was kayaking and hiking and traveling and felt great. And then I had 7 days of acute illness from long COVID, and I felt like I was recovering well. Day 9, I woke up, and it was like as if the Death Star was going down and sent out a million drones into my mitochondria. All of a sudden, I had chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalitis overnight. Didn't have energy to go down the stairs. Couldn't chew the salad I'd made the day before. It was like I was exhausted. And I was like, well, this is trippy.
Yeah.
And I had all this stuff I was planning on doing that I could hardly, like I couldn't function. And I really literally remember, I kind of look over there because it was that wall over there, that I remember putting my head against and just sobbing. Like, and this is with all my experience, all my training, all my resources. I was just like, I was just crying. I mean, like, really? Really?
Or again, really?
Yeah, I know. It's like, okay, So I get it. And we all have those moments, and I think it's important to honor those moments as well. So we're not just paving over
Right.
what's real for us. And yet it's being able to have that space and time. That's another part of connection, is being real with what's real inside of you, getting support if you need it to process that. And then realizing that you want your baseline most of the time. I choose to
Yes.
be in this other place, right?
Yes. Yes. It's so true. So tell us more about your summit. We talked and joked a little bit before we started. It's the longest but very comprehensive. So tell us about your summit.
Yeah, so I have been just so excited to be able to bring together over 50 speakers who are experts in long COVID, in myalgic encephalitis. They're clinicians, they are researchers, they're energy healers, they're amazing people like you who are doing work. And what I love about this summit is this condition is really not understood well. And we're coming to a place where we're really getting to be a lot more clear about what's causing it, what the symptoms are, how we can diagnose it, how we can address it, how it's not the same for everybody, how we need to have an individualized medicine approach. To your earlier question, it needs to be unique for somebody. And in the summit, there are going to be so many amazing answers for people to listen. So I'm very excited. Um, we were
When,
joking that we were, what's that?
when does it launch and what is the name of it?
Yeah, it launches on March 31st.
Okay, so
And the cart opens on March 31st, and it's actually running from April 11th to the 17th of April. And then and it's so if you're listening before, then sign up. I'd love to have you join if you're interested. It's totally free. You can listen to the summits, each day that we'll have new speakers coming in. And the name is, I was joking that we're going after the longest title award, and I think we're going to win it, which is the Brain Fog, Chronic Fatigue, Long COVID, Memory Loss, and Pain Breakthrough Summit.
I love
And
it.
I have to cheat and look in the notes because even I cannot remember it.
Like I will not remember that.
So next time I do a summit, we're just going to call it the Great Summit or something.
I love it. And so what inspired you to create the summit?
Um,
Because it
my
is a
ins
huge undertaking.
what
Huge.
it is a huge undertaking. Yeah, that's a really good question. My inspiration for doing the summit is it feels like there's this void. There are over 400 million people with long COVID.
Wow.
And there's probably hundreds of millions of people with chronic fatigue myalgic encephalitis, and that's underdiagnosed. It mostly impacts women. The men who get it often are more sick than the women. And this condition is, there aren't answers for people. Too many people are being told by their doctors, I'm sorry, we don't have an answer. You have to get used to it. I met a 20-year-old in New Zealand who was told when she was 17, you're going to just have to get used to it. 17. We don't have anything to do for you. There's a few medications that might help some of your symptoms, but you just have to get used to being tired all the time. I mean, I get mad. I want to cry. I want to, because that's not true. That is not my experience. That's not what I know. And that's not what these 50 speakers know either. And we all have different things that we can bring to the table. And I feel like because there isn't one path, having multiple speakers come is a way that you can find your path. I know that one of the first times I had chronic fatigue, I listened to a summit, and it was in the talk in the summit that I learned something, and I followed that thread for myself and allowed me to have a breakthrough in my life. And that's what I want for you. I want those of you who listen to find that talk that's like, oh, that's the one that resonates with me. That's the next step in my healing journey. That's going to be the one that's going to open the door so I can be a fuller expression of who I'm meant to be. I consider chronic fatigue, people who are stuck, exhausted, as unnecessary suffering. That
Mhm.
time I spent on the couch was unnecessary suffering. The breakthrough moment on the bed, that was a dark night of the soul. My soul needed that experience to grow into who I was. The years I was exhausted, unnecessary suffering. I don't want you to suffer unnecessarily anymore.
I love it. So where can the audience find you if they want to know more about you?
The best place is to go to my website, drjennytufenkian.com. That's Dr. Jenny, Jenny, Tufenkian, T as in Tom, U, F as in Frank, E, N as in Nancy, Kian.
All right. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Any final words, anything you'd like to share with the audience that will inspire and empower them to take action on moving through this?
Yeah, thank you. You know your body better than anyone else can ever know your body. So never listen to a practitioner that doesn't respect what you have to say about what you're feeling. You know that better than anyone else. And also always know that your body is there to heal. Your body is sending you signals and signs, and anything that you're experiencing right now is a sign and a clue of something that it wants to tell you more about. So just knowing that there's always hope, there's always the ability to heal. The body wants to be back in balance. That's what it's meant to be. It's just putting the tool kit together for yourself so that you can get your body back into balance is what you need to be doing.
So beautifully said. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you were here. We are sisters from another mother for sure, with how we
Right.
view the healing journey. What the body is wanting to do is come back into balance and come back into perfect health. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I look forward to your upcoming summit.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye, everyone.